You're listening to Secure Freedom Radio. Freedom Radio.
Now more from Frank Gaffney.
Welcome back. And happily, it's not just Frank Gaffney. You've got Ralph Peters, an extraordinary contributor to the national security policy debate in so many different fora. And I'm not going to spend more time singing your praises at the moment because I want to get into it with you, Ralph. Thank you, though, for joining us once again at Secure Freedom Radio.
Delighted, Frank. Delighted.
Listen, on Iran, we've got, it appears, growing evidence that there really is potentially uncontrollable desire on the part of the people of Iran for change. Are we doing anything right to try to help that come out as, in fact, a realized ambition?
Well, I mean, to be fair to the Obama administration, and I want to be fair, there's not a lot that we can do beyond providing some moral support right now to the protesters and working with the international community, sanctions, et cetera, because we don't want to invade Iran over this. But what concerns me about the administration is that they had a plan. It was a crazy plan, but it was a plan. And that was they were going to talk, President Obama was going to use his charm on President Ahmadinejad of Iran and talk him out of nukes.
Right.
And Obama believed it because, look, here's a guy was able to talk his way all the way to the Oval Office. So seriously, without doing anything.
Right.
So he's convinced that he could talk everybody else into it, Putin, et cetera. He got a shock last month. And suddenly, the game changed. Iranians came out in the streets in the millions, protesting a rigged election, calling for a moderate amount of freedom. You know, not bikinis on Main Street, but just a little more freedom, honest elections, the right to breathe a little bit in the public space. And the Obama administration was a proverbial deer caught in the headlights, and they still don't know what to do because none of this was part of the plan.
Right. And Ralph Peters.
The Iranians are thumbing their nose at the Obama administration, cracking down, murdering dissidents, imprisoning them, putting on show trials, and the Obama administration is just struck dumb.
Yeah. And worse yet, as you've indicated, Ralph, in a recent New York Post column, they seem to be signaling pretty unmistakably that they are now acceding to the Iranian nuclear weapon reality.
And that is terrifying. Frank, that is absolutely terrifying. When Hillary Clinton made her speech about don't worry about Iranian nukes, we'll provide you with a defense umbrella, Frank, that is nuts.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to Israel, the only rule of law democracy between the Mediterranean Sea and the border of India. It's stunning because in Washington, you know, if you're living high off the hog and going to Georgetown parties, well, it might sound reasonable to say, oh, well, the Iranians, they might not even use those nukes on Israel. If you're trying to raise a family in Tel Aviv or Haifa, and some American from a think tank tells you, oh, we think there's only a 20% chance the Iranians would use their nukes if they got them. Well, whoa, wait a minute.
That's a pretty high probability.
Yeah, I mean, how would the folks in Des Moines like to hear that?
Yeah. To say nothing of the probability actually being considerably higher than that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just picking that number out of the air and trying to be conservative about it.
The lowballing phenomenon.
Yeah, indeed. And so in fact, the book I have coming out in September, a novel called The War After Armageddon, it's set after the nuclear destruction of Israel, trying to get people's attention because this is serious stuff. We've got people like Ahmadinejad and his pals, to say nothing of Hezbollah or Hamas, saying, oh, right, they want Israel destroyed. They want Jews dead. And Washington's response in the Obama era, oh, no, you don't really mean that. They don't really mean that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they do mean it, Frank.
We've heard this from, you know, the cognitive dissonance of yesteryear in connection with previous statements by totalitarians who were absolutely determined to execute final solutions and the like.
Hitler telegraphed his intentions, but it's crazy because especially Western hardcore leftists, and those skew left of center, just want to believe that all men want peace. If all men wanted peace, we wouldn't need cops and soldiers. But you know what? We need them.
Right.
And there are some real psychos out there. There are some people who believe they're on a mission from God. And, Frank, you can't reason with somebody who thinks death is a promotion.
Yeah. And we're at a moment in history when, as I'm fond of saying, the Obama doctrine seems to be not only to be emboldening our enemies by, for example, saying, oh, you're going to have your nuclear weapons, but also undermining our allies as well as diminishing our own country. The undermining our allies piece, I'd like to just segue with you to another of your columns. And by the way, at securefreedomradio.org, you'll be able to link to all of these wonderful Ralph Peters columns in the New York Post. But a recent one on the 28th of July was Dumping on Israel. And what is it that is best you can tell, Ralph Peters, at work in terms of this president's decision to undermine our most important ally in the Middle East?
Well, it's heartbreaking to watch this. And, I think you can sum up the first 6 months of the Obama Doctrine in 3 words. America's always wrong. And the first corollary to the Obama Doctrine is if America's wrong, Israel's really wrong. It's stunning. I fear that Obama's decades of association with anti-Semites, with anti-Israeli activists, with people like the Reverend Wright and the nutcase fringe in Chicago,
Rashid Khalidi, let's not forget him.
To say the least. And he's left him with a real chip on his shoulder when it comes to Israel. Now, obviously I'm not the president's psychologist, but I can only read the external.
But you can play one on TV, Ralph.
Yeah, we all can, and we got somebody who's playing president right now.
Well, that's true.
But seriously, I just think he really believes that Palestinian terrorists are freedom fighters and that Israelis are oppressors, and I fear, Frank, that this is not going to end in a pretty scene.
Yeah. Well, again, you are not only an accomplished military man and a pedigreed strategic thinker, you're a student of history. And again, just to go back to some pretty sorry experience, when we strengthen our enemies, or at least encourage them, embolden them, and simultaneously weaken our allies, undermine them, demoralize them, distances ourselves from them, seemingly create a considerable amount of daylight between us and them. What, in your experience, your cumulative experience, does that typically translate into? Perhaps, for example, the topic of your new book.
Well, it translates into war.
Yeah.
And especially when you're dealing with these hardened terrorists, again, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Iranians, the CG, all these guys. And Frank, my God, the administration's notion that by siding with the Palestinians and equating the Palestinian Nakba, the Palestinian dislocation, with the Holocaust, that somehow this will persuade Arabs to deal with Israel, put yourself in the Arabs' place. That's what an intelligence officer would do. And when you do, you look at it and say, America's backing away from Israel.
This is not going to come out right. Yeah. No, you're so right. Ralph Peters, the music means we're at the end of our time together. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Please come back soon. You are a great national treasure, and we love having you on.